Gold and silver are on the rebound as the markets get a little bit nervous about what's going on in the world and at home with the economy. Let's talk about it all as we explore. It's nice to see a little bit of a turnaround with gold and silver doing what they do in times like these, whenever there's uncertainty in the markets. And people are uncertain right now for a myriad of different reasons. We're going to break it down here, even after some positive economic data, from which Reuters, who I'm quoting from, says it's bad economic data. But we know what their agenda is. But nonetheless, I think there is something else at play here that is a very important point, and that is not a resolution on the Russia-Ukraine war. Putin's no-show in Turkey pretty much bears that out to be the case. It's not going to be an easy thing to get that conflict settled anytime soon. Gold prices rose more than 1% on Thursday, aided by a softer dollar and weak U.S. economic data, they say, while President Vladimir Putin's failure to attend peace talks drove some safe haven buying. And that's Russian presidents. So let's get into what these markets are doing right now. Everything is up, including rhodium right now. Gold is up almost 2%. It's up 1.92% for this metal, and driving prices back above $3,200 an ounce again to $3,239.10. That's a $61 rise in price today. Silver's price is up 1.2%, so it didn't rise as much as gold did. It suffered a little bit there, and it's up 39 cents, though, to $32.70, 30 cents away from that critical $33 an ounce level. That brings the gold to silver ratio up to 99.36. Platinum and palladium are both up. Now platinum is trading right at $1,000, and palladium is up $11 right now, and rhodium up $25. But that is the backdrop. But I don't know why they're saying we have weak economic data other than just an agenda. But nonetheless, whenever there's times, whenever your personal economy is at play here, you've got a way as to what you should spend your money on. And there's times to buy and times not to buy, but whenever you're in the market again, it's always good to shop around for the best price. You might be surprised. Channel sponsor Summit Metals very well could have the lowest price if you look around and see what they've got there for both gold and silver. So check them out at summitmetals.com. Now, spot gold has risen, and silver has risen here to recover what we saw earlier in the day. And what we saw with the producer price indexes unexpectedly fell in April. That seems like it would be good, right? While retail sales growth slowed, and I guess that's what they're talking about here, slower retail sales, likely due to tariffs. But producer price index dropped to the lowest it was in 5 years, I think. That's pretty good. And that means that, and that could be weighed on as far as, the tariffs as well that are taking effect since April. This report showed the consumer prices rose less than expected for the month of April. Markets are pricing the Federal Reserve to cut rates by September. Lower interest rates help increase bullion's attractiveness as it's a non-yielding asset. And I pulled up the Fed Watch tool, and right now for June, that meeting will be taking place on the 18th of the month. And they're saying that 91.8% believe that the Federal Reserve are going to leave rates unchanged by then at 4.25 to 4.50. Only 8.2% believe they're going to cut rates by a quarter point. So they're holding the line there, and that is likely going to be the case, and we'll see how that plays. But I think that at this point, what the Fed does will be all but immaterial unless something changes dramatically. If we're going to wait until September for them to go up or lower the rates, I don't think it's going to have that much of an impact unless something drastic changes here. Thursday's data creates more room for the Fed to cut rates, with a more dovish expectation building in the market, according to Peter Grant, who's a vice president and senior metal strategist over at Zaner Metals. Yeah, it does give them more room, and I tell you, that they have their tools in a toolbox, and obviously to be able to go one direction or another is going to make a difference here. But one thing is for sure, they can only do so much. They've all but destroyed the dollar if you compare it back to 1913 when the Federal Reserve Act was put into play. It's lost anywhere between, some say, the high 96 percentile range of loss in value all the way up to 98, 99% loss in value. Just depends on how you measure inflation over that time. Of course, the way we used to measure inflation compared to what we do now is vastly different. Now, there's room for them to cut rates with a more dovish expectation, and Putin not attending the peace talks in Turkey dims expectations of progress towards a peace deal, which I think is helping to underpin gold prices today, and I agree with that. Putin sent a second-tier team of negotiators to hold peace talks with Ukraine in Turkey, spurring Kyiv's challenge to go there in person to meet Volodymyr Zelensky. Now, Rubio has since made a statement doubting that there's going to be much progress there, and that really it's going to take the two men meeting together, Trump and Putin, in order to make this thing work out. Analysts say investors remain cautious as global trade tensions continue, although the U.S. and China have agreed to a temporary tariff deal for 90 days. And so that's what we're looking at here, weighing in as what's happening. Overall, really the bottom line is that the markets are uncertain economically as to how this is going to weigh, as Walmart has said they're going to start to raise prices for products, goods, and services. That's obviously a huge deal. And what's that going to do with the economy when people are still suffering under inflation and problems that we've seen since that? And now these tariffs are going to cause prices to go up, and there's going to be some amount of that that's going to be passed on to the consumer. As to how much of it, that remains to be seen. I don't necessarily buy into the fact that every single percentage will be passed on to the customer, because I think there's got to be some competition with U.S. markets as well, too, to keep that from happening too much. We'll see. Notwithstanding, it is a hardship, obviously, and that will weigh on the economy, probably in a negative way. Markets understand this, which is why they're uncertain. In fact, with the potentially ceasefire or deal or pullback between Pakistan and India, that could also change in a heartbeat as well. And with the Gaza situation, that's still weighing in. So there's a lot of uncertainty there. We're not out of the woods for any of this yet in reality, and the markets are reacting to that, I think, today. And that just goes to show you that these natural market forces are pretty darn powerful, even if you believe there is some suppression going on. But today is an interesting day for metals, as there's some recovery, and I think if we see some numbers reach past resistance, like $3,300 gold, $33 silver again, I think we're in for a time where we're going to start to see some numbers come around and solidify some support positions for the metals. So that's what we're dealing with there. But, it's interesting. It's fascinating to watch these markets. I do post daily videos many times, not always, where I do market reports like this, but it usually is about what happens on that specific day. Notwithstanding, many of you will comment and say, hey, I'm in it for the long haul. I don't care what happens from day to day. And I think that's the right attitude to have, unless you're buying or you need to sell or want to sell. If you need to sell or want to sell on an up day like today, probably not a bad idea to do it if you're going to do that. Or if you want to buy during a pretty big dip like what we saw yesterday, it's probably not a bad idea to buy during those days. But it really just depends on your situation. But I do like to talk about the metals and to give insights and also to ask questions and get insights from you, the viewers. A lot of you have some very interesting analysis and points to make on what's going on in the markets, and I appreciate that. So notwithstanding, there you have it. There's your market report for today. It'll be fascinating to see what happens as we tomorrow is usually what they call the old slammy Friday, and we'll see what happens. And then it might be another buying opportunity tomorrow. We'll keep an eye on things, watch right before the market open. That's when it usually happens. Big smackdown in price. And we'll see what transpires tomorrow that could lead it one direction or another. So I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch this video, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.